Thank you for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Jaein. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. President Moon Jaein urges the National Assembly to pass the 11 trillion won supplementary budget during his first ever parliamentary speech today. Samsung Electronics is expected to have posted an all-time high in operating income in the second quarter, thanks to an increase in memory chip prices and strong sales of its new Galaxy S8 smartphone. These stories and more coming right up. We begin at the National Assembly. President Moon Jaein has called for lawmakers' support to pass a multi-billion-dollar supplementary budget bill. Now, it's the first time in the nation's history for the president to deliver a parliamentary speech to push for an extra budget. For more, we connect to our Kim Min-ji standing by at the National Assembly. So, Min-ji, fill us in.
Jaein, it was a big day here at the National Assembly with President Moon Jae-in speaking himself on the necessity of a supplementary budget. Like you said, he becomes the first president in Korean history to deliver a speech on an extra budget. The $10 billion supplementary budget bill was submitted to the National Assembly last week, with a large portion to be directed at creating new jobs, some 110,000 to be exact. Now, much of this will be for young job seekers. During a speech which lasted about 30 minutes, he explained to lawmakers where and how the budget will be used. For starters, the budget will go towards creating 12,000 new jobs in the public, safety, and security sector, while another 24,000 will be added in the social services sector. The budget will also help create some 5,000 jobs in the private sector, especially at small and medium-sized companies through various programs. Another portion of the budget will go towards programs targeting women who are looking to start working again after giving birth, as well as the elderly. Now, President Moon said although the extra budget will not be enough to solve all issues at stake, it's the least that the government can do. He noted the record high youth unemployment rate, saying that the economy needs the right remedy at the right time. The president said that if the country sits on its hands, Korea may face an even bigger crisis that poses a threat to the economy. Now, the extra budget is expected to be drawn out from excess tax revenue and without issuing government bonds. The president stressed that there is only one solution to improving the job market, that is to boost the number of quality jobs. He added that Korea needs to shift its economic paradigm to one in which growth is driven by job creation rather than the other way around. Now, we must note that we will have to see whether this will be enough to convince the opposition parties, especially the Conservative Liberty Korea Party, as it has expressed pessimism about an extra budget that's focused mainly on job creation. Korea's national finance law also states an extra budget can be implemented under conditions of major uncertainty, such as a change in inter-Korean relations or a mass unemployment crisis. Back to you, Jaein.
Korea's central bank has been maintaining an expansionary monetary policy for quite some time to prop up growth. But now it's hinting that tightening may not be too far off in the future. Speaking at an event to mark the Bank of Korea's 67th anniversary on Monday, BOK Governor Lee Ju-yeol said going forward, there might be the need to upward adjust rates if the economy keeps its recovery momentum or if conditions clearly improve. Now, it's the first time that the BOK chief has mentioned such a need for change. He did say, though, that for now the key rate will stay at its current record low of 1.25%, where it's been for a year. He cited uncertainties threatening growth and low inflationary pressure on the demand side. The Korean equity market had a rough start to the week, while the sluggish U.S. market overnight spooked sentiment. We're now joined by our markets contributor Choi Jin-seok to talk about overall stock market performance and upcoming market events. Hello, Jin-seok.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so how did the Korean stock market close on the first day of the week?
Both the Kospi and the Kosdaq market fell sharply in the first session of the week. The Kospi dropped by 1% to close at 2357.87, while the Kosdaq plummeted by 1.38% to close at 664. The Kospi market fell for the first time in 3 sessions, and the Kosdaq fell for the first time in 9 sessions. The Kospi once dived to as low as 23.56 as both foreigners and institutions unloaded shares heavily. Investors took the same position on the Kosdaq, where retail investors were the only net buyers. The U.S. tech-weighted NASDAQ index plummeted by 1.8% overnight, and this spooked sentiment in the technology sector in the Korean market as well. Most large-cap tech stocks, including Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix, LG Electronics, and LG Display, suffered heavy losses during today's session. Share prices of component companies fell sharply as well. Meanwhile, financials performed relatively strongly, helped mostly by expectations for an interest rate hike in the U.S.
Now, a sharp decline in the U.S. NASDAQ market was somewhat unexpected. So what are some of the main reasons behind this?
Right. Although other indexes were not volatile at all, the NASDAQ market overnight plummeted by almost 2%, raising fears of a correction. In particular, the so-called FANG stocks, including Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google or Alphabet, that have been leading the tech-led stock market rally, all experienced a 3 to 4% decline. Experts say the NASDAQ market has been rising for the past 8 months without a meaningful correction, and despite a number of negative catalysts, the index broke its all-time record last Thursday as well. Therefore, investors seem to be taking profits before the market keeps breaking record levels again. Historically, the tech sector has been underperforming the financial sector during the U.S. Federal Reserve's monetary tightening as well. Since experts still have a mixed view on whether the correction of the NASDAQ will be contagious, investors here at home should keep a close eye on the movements of global tech stocks, at least in the near term.
Then what are some of the major market events lined up for this week? I mean, a lot of eyes will be on some of the major central banks around the world.
Right. The focus for this week is expected to shift toward the Federal Open Market Committee that will take place on Tuesday and Wednesday local time, and the results will come out early Thursday morning Korean time. Experts and market participants are nearly convinced that the Federal Reserve will raise its benchmark interest rates. CME FedWatch, a futures market betting on future rate hikes, shows a 99.6% possibility of a June hike. Therefore, investors are expected to pay more attention to the press conference by Fed Chair Janet Yellen and what she'll say about the Fed's current assessment of economic conditions. More importantly, Chair Yellen might give signals for a potential reduction of the Fed's balance sheet.
And the Bank of Japan will also hold its monetary policy meeting this week. So what are the expectations on that?
The results of the BOJ meeting will come out this week as well, and most experts expect the BOJ will keep its current policy stance. However, there could be some signals that the central bank might change its position related to its exit strategy from an ultra-accommodative policy. In fact, there have recently been media reports saying that the BOJ might change its communication method. Meanwhile, economists see a strong chance of a second term for BOJ Governor Haruhiko Kuroda, Bloomberg said today. A majority of economists who offered an opinion on the matter said Kuroda is considered a major contender, and a third of them listed him as the only possible contender to lead the central bank after his current term ends in April of 2018. More than 80% of those who see tightening as the BOJ's next move also do not see it happening until after April next year.
Now, moving on to global economic data, the so-called G2 countries will be releasing some important economic indicators this week.
Right. Just a few hours before the FOMC results come out, the Consumer Price Index and retail sales will be released in the U.S. Experts expect core CPI rose by 1.9% year-on-year, which is almost the same level of the Fed's objective of 2%. Retail sales are expected to increase by 0.1% compared to the previous month as well. Over in China, the government will release the country's retail sales, industrial production, and fixed asset investment on Wednesday. Since recently reported trade figures were more robust than expected, market participants hope this week's data will maintain that positive trend. Experts believe the data will be somewhat sluggish compared to previous month's data, though.
All right, thank you so much for the outlook today.
Thank you.
The domestic market consensus has Samsung Electronics set to reap a fresh operating profit record in the April through June period, pulled up by robust semiconductor sales. Our Eunice Kim has more.
If there were concerns Samsung Electronics would collapse on its Galaxy Note 7 woes last year, its upcoming second quarter figures may help allay some of those fears. According to market data provider FN Guide, Korea's tech giant is on track to ring in sales of more than 58 trillion won, up some 14% year over year. And its operating profit? A whopping 59% more from the same time last year at 13 trillion won, which would be good enough to top its previous record by a few trillion won. Analysts attribute the resounding comeback to booming sales of its new flagship smartphone, the Galaxy S8, strong demand for OLED panels, as well as a clear rebound in semiconductor prices. In fact, market consensus credits more than half of Samsung Electronics' second quarter operating profits to semiconductors at 7 trillion won or $6.2 billion, a figure that could put the Korean firm ahead of Intel to claim the #1 spot in global market share. Others say its stellar Q2 operating profit could also put Samsung in front of Apple for the first time in 9 years. And in the coming age of the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution, semiconductors is where Samsung has its eyes. Its Pyeongtaek plant, a sprawling factory capable of pushing out fourth-generation 3D NAND chips, is set to begin operation next month. And traders see an even brighter third quarter, if not year, for the firm. But experts caution even as optimism puts Samsung Electronics on its way to a blockbuster year, the impact of its success on the Korean economy at large remains to be seen. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Hyundai and Kia Motors have confirmed the recall of nearly 240,000 vehicles due to production defects. Notable models like the Sonata and Genesis are among the 12 models with recall orders. This is the first time a Korean car manufacturer has been issued a forced government recall. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport held a hearing on May 12th following complaints about 5 defects ranging from faulty emissions control parts to defective lug nuts that can cause wheels to come loose. The ministry will review recall plans submitted by the 2 car makers and call for additional changes if necessary. The combined cash reserves of 178 companies under Korea's 30 major business groups reached a new high of 690 trillion won, or roughly $610 billion as of the end of March. In other words, this means companies have been stockpiling cash after paying the required dividends to shareholders rather than using it to raise wages or invest in R&D. It also indicates that a policy temporarily enacted by the previous Park Geun-hye administration, which slaps extra taxes on firms that don't use a certain percentage of their reserves on improving working conditions, has had almost no effect. Korea has emerged as the top foreign investor in Vietnam, pumping more than $50 billion into the Southeast Asian country over the past 3 decades or so. The Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency reports that Korea accounted for almost 31% of the foreign direct investment made in Vietnam since 1988. Experts say Korean investment in Vietnam has been on a steady rise due to the country's socio-political stability, low-cost labor, and promising economic growth. Breaking it down by sector, over 70% of Korea's FDI flowed into Vietnam's manufacturing industry, followed by its real estate and utilities sectors. A highly pathogenic strain of the avian influenza virus continues to fan out across Korea, with another confirmed case at a small farm in Gyeongsang-namdo province. And to try to contain the spread of the virus, the government has issued a nationwide ban on the trade of live birds. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
The number of confirmed bird flu cases in Korea has spread to 21 farms in just 10 days. Looking to stem the spread, the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs has announced a 2-week nationwide ban on the trade of live birds. The ban came into effect at midnight. This comes as the government widens the ban, which was initially issued in Jeollabuk-do Province and Jeju Island. The H5N8 strain of the virus has also spread to Goseong County, Gyeongsangnam-do Province, where a farm with some 850 poultry animals tested positive for the virus. The farm purchased birds from a vendor that sold poultry animals to a nearby farm that also tested positive last week.
The Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs is prohibiting transactions by poultry vendors and the transportation of birds.
Holding a meeting on Sunday, Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun instructed officials to take all preventive measures and consider every available option. Korea's second AI outbreak in just 2 months has led to the culling of over 180,000 poultry at nearly 180 farms so far. Kim Hyo-sun, Business Daily.
Challenged by stronger competition from easy-to-cook meals, ramen manufacturers are looking to take back their market share with a wide range of new products, just in time for the hot, sizzling summer. Our Elliot Kim has the story.
Simple home foods are growing in popularity these days, eating into sales of instant noodles, prompting ramyeon producers to push out new products like cold soybean noodles and curry-flavored noodles to win back their turf. Ramyeon was first introduced in Korea in 1963, when rice was scarce. To promote consumption of flour, noodles were widely promoted in public campaigns. Despite health concerns, instant foods have maintained a steady presence in the Korean diet for a long time. The sheer variety, low cost, and simplicity have all contributed to their popularity. When it comes to ramyeon in particular, Koreans are estimated to eat 76 servings each year. But after sales skyrocketed in 2015, lifted by non-conventional products like black bean and spicy seafood noodles, the ramyeon industry as a whole has stayed relatively static. To combat this, ramyeon companies are once again launching new products. One of the newest items this summer is a cold soybean noodle soup that has twice the amount of soup compared to other types.
I usually like soybean noodles, but a lot of work goes into making them.
Having an instant ramen version is nice.
Sauce-based noodles, which are also popular during the summer, are also seeing an increase in variety. A cold buckwheat noodle product has seen sales of 1.1 million units in the first month, and new attempts like rice noodles with curry have seen sales near $1 million in the first 3 weeks.
People in their teens and 20s were enjoying a variety of sauce-based noodles at convenience stores. So following that trend, we developed curry rice noodles.
With both cool and flavorful and hot and spicy ramyeon varieties available, companies are in for heated competition this summer. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Now, the coffee market here in Korea is seeing two distinctive trends: price polarization and diversified menus. So how is the market constantly reinventing itself to woo customers? Let's take a look.
At Seoul's business district, it is easy to spot office workers holding cups of coffee in their hands during lunch hours. Coffee has long been a popular beverage in Korea.
Korea's coffee culture took off after the 1988 Seoul Olympics. Then the country began allowing its people to travel overseas, and many Korean students went overseas to study. These developments helped Korean consumers explore international dishes and develop its own coffee culture.
According to estimates by the Statistics of Korea, the average Korean drinks 428 cups of coffee per year. The number of cafes nationwide reaches about 8,800, up 63% from 2 years ago.
There are a lot of cafes in Korea, and there have been talks about whether these businesses are growing well or not. I think that the market has reached saturation, at least from a quantitative point of view.
One of the noticeable trends in the saturated coffee market is a price polarization. Convenience stores have been driving the low end of the market with cheap coffee. One convenience chain introduced a cafe section in the store in 2015, where customers can buy a cup of coffee for 88 cents.
It's cheap and easily accessible, so I come here often.
For the past 2 years, the convenience chain sold roughly 30 million cups of brewed coffee.
If you buy a cup of coffee in the morning and after lunch from a specialty coffee chain, it can cost you about $8.8 per day. But from convenience stores, it only costs $1.7. Other than those sitting in, there are many takeout customers.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, specialty coffee brands are rolling out premium offerings. A famous global coffee chain has opened its high-end stores.
The regular store also uses good quality beans, but the reserve store offers beans sourced from selected regions and a range of coffee extractors to meet the diverse needs of customers.
Customers can choose from a line of high-quality beans from selected farms in Africa and Asia, which are limited in quantity and select a brewing method. An Americano can cost more than double the price of regular stores, but sales are growing faster than ordinary stores, thanks to regular customers.
I usually drink caffeine to wake up, but I drink reserve coffee to feel better.
I come here whenever I feel like drinking special coffee.
In addition to the widening gap in prices, a diversified menu is another major trend in the local coffee market. In particular, nitro coffee has been the hottest buzzword in the business. A coffee franchise that introduced cold brew coffee for the first time in Korea last year has recently launched nitrogen-infused cold brew to deliver a new cold coffee experience.
Last year, our cold brew drew a great response from customers. Customers now have greater knowledge about coffee, and they are more open to new coffee experiences. We thought it was time to introduce nitro coffee.
As making nitro coffee requires a special machine, it was only available at high prices in selected cafes. But a local coffee chain developed an easy way to make nitro brewed coffee. The brand distributed nitro coffee machines developed in-house to its stores across the country and lowered the price of nitro coffee to bring it to a wider audience.
We have lowered the price barrier to bring nitro coffee to a wider audience and stay on top of the trend.
Adding nitrogen to espresso gives the drink a smooth, creamy texture and qualities of beer without the alcohol.
The coffee has a foamy texture much like a stout beer. It really feels like drinking a beer, especially the way it passes through the mouth and slides down the throat.
Korea's coffee market stood at $7.89 billion last year, nearly a threefold increase from 10 years ago. The coffee market is well saturated with fierce competition, but experts say this could be an encouraging sign for the overall market.
Customers now have a better understanding about the flavor and aroma of coffee. In addition, the coffee market is working hard to offer great coffee to customers. For these reasons, I think the market will continue to see qualitative growth.
With coffee being an indispensable drink for many people, we look forward to seeing how the market will respond to the evolving needs of coffee lovers.
And that wraps it up for today. But we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and goodbye.